everyone. Hey, it's almost Thanksgiving. We're just a couple, actually less than a couple weeks away. So I'm going to do a little video for you on how to make my stuffed pumpkins. I will link the exact recipe down below in the description, but we're going to start off with one of these little baking pumpkins. You could use a little bit bigger one than this. I have another one that is a little bit bigger than this that I'm going to be actually making on Thanksgiving, but this is a good one to show you how to do it. First thing we're going to do is carve it. I guess not exactly carve it, we're just going to cut the top off of it. So you want to just do this very carefully, because these can be tough to get through. As you'll see when we get this done though, these look really neat on the holiday table. So you're going to get it all off like that, grab a hold of that handle and really tear it off. And then we're just going to cut all the seeds and strings off of there. And then I am going to put it in my little baking dish here. Move you back down a little bit. And I'm putting just a little trivet on the top of it and sitting the pumpkin right on top of that trivet. And I'm just going to salt and pepper the inside of this. And what we're going to do is give the pumpkin a little head start in the oven all by itself. Because what I'm going to stuff this with is a rice mixture. But the rice mixture will actually already be cooked when I put it in there. If I can figure out how to get this thing back on there correctly. Right there we go. So I will place this in the oven just like that with a cup of water in the bottom. That way the water is not actually touching the bottom of the pumpkin, but it will create a nice steam and help it cook a little bit better. And it's going to take about an hour altogether. So I'm going to cook it for a half hour all by itself, and then I'm going to fill it. Into the oven. And we'll just keep our eye on that while we finish preparing everything else. What I have going here is a rice mixture. This is 2 cups of dry rice altogether. It's a mixture of red rice, white rice, and wild rice. I just wanted to get a really good color combination going there. And I'm going to cook this for about 12 minutes. 15 minutes is when it's really done to perfection, but I know it's going to cook for a little bit longer while it's actually in the pumpkin, so I don't want to cook it quite all the way. So in the meantime, while we're waiting on that, these are the items that I will be sauteing separately in a pan. We have celery and onion, red pepper, and mushroom. Just chop those up to a medium-sized chop. And we'll just put those in our hot pan here. we're just going to simmer these over medium-high heat until they are just starting to get translucent. Not done all the way, you know, they'll still have a little bit of bite to them. And then we will combine that with the rice. In the meantime, I'm going to add or chop up some spinach because I like to add a little green color to this dish. So I'm going to chop up a little spinach that I can add to this in about the last 5 minutes. It's really such a fun dish to take to Thanksgiving or Christmas. It just looks really pretty on the table, and you know, pretty food just tastes better. I mean, I think that's a fact, isn't it? Or it should be. Anyway, you want to chop your spinach up. Doesn't have to be super fine because, you know, we all know how much spinach shrinks as it cooks. But chop it up pretty good. These are baby spinach leaves. And I'm going to have, after I chop it all up, probably about 3 cups of the raw spinach to add to it. But that'll cook down to, gosh, probably only about ½ a cup, maybe a cup if I'm lucky. But it really cooks down. Now you can spice up your stuffing. I call this stuffing like a rice stuffing because it is going to be stuffed into a pumpkin. Plus, I sort of tend to use the same spices that I would use if I was making a bread stuffing. So it has that real holiday taste to it. So we're going to start off with just, and you know, when I'm cooking at home, I don't measure. The exact measurements will be in the description box under the recipe. This is poultry seasoning. Just going to sprinkle a little bit of that on there. A little bit of salt and pepper. Add water if you need it during this process. Just add a little water to keep it from sticking. I like it to get a chance to get slightly browned, the onions, so I try not to add too much water because then you just end up steaming it. And I'm going to add a generous amount of garlic, minced garlic. And rosemary. I actually grew this rosemary in my garden and dried it. So, you know, just use your own discretion how much of this you like, but really try to, you know, break it up pretty good. You don't want your guests to get a great big chunk of rosemary. But rosemary really lends a nice flavor to this dish. I've made this rice dish a few different ways, and I think this might be my favorite. Now I'm going to add my spinach. You can see it's a lot of spinach. Now I went ahead and drained my rice. It's almost done, not quite. But like I said, it will continue cooking just a little bit more while it's in the pumpkin. So that's where we're at. That's how it looks right now. We're just going to set that off the heat with the lid on while we finish cooking this. Okay, so I'm going to let this cook down a little bit more. Then I'm going to combine the rice with these vegetables, and in probably about a half hour that pumpkin will be ready to stuff. So I'll be right back when I do that. Almost forgot to add my mushrooms. That would not be good. Get those mushrooms in there to cook too. They cook pretty fast though. I knew it didn't look like enough stuff in that pan. So basically the rice stuffing, the things that are really giving it the flavor, in addition to the garlic and rosemary, is mushrooms, celery, onions, red pepper, and that's about it. And the spinach, of course. Okay, well, it's been about a half hour. The pumpkin is starting to look good. Actually, it's been about 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting our stuffing together. So here's my rice. And you can see 2 cups of that rice makes a whole bunch of rice. Just going to stir that up so it stays nice and fluffy. I cooked this for about 12 minutes. Just a little less time. I usually cook it for 15 minutes, so I just gave it a little less time. And then I'm just going to dump in there my filling. Look how pretty my filling came out. Or my vegetable filling. And I'm just going to dump that all in there. I love the colors that are in there, the greens and the reds. It looks so festive. Another really nice addition to this would be some dried cranberries. That would look real pretty in there as well. And then I'm adding 2/3 of a cup of chopped walnuts just to give it a little bit of texture. Then you're just going to stir that up real good. And you can see how much that spinach cooks down. I mean, it seemed like so much spinach, but not really. Not by the time you blend it all together. And this is the time to taste it and see if you need to adjust your seasonings in any way. Rosemary is so good. I think it needs a little bit more salt and pepper though. Because once you stuff it inside that pumpkin, it's a little hard to re-season everything. Just a little sprinkle of Italian seasoning. I want it to be real flavorful. Give that another good stir. gently take that lid off, and it's got quite a ways to go. I'm going to put that back in there for probably another 20 minutes or so. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so it's been about another 25 minutes. I did crank the heat up a little bit to, I think I had it at 350, which was probably just a little too low. So I did crank it up to 375 and cooked it for about another 25 minutes. Now I'm just going to fill the pumpkin with the rice mixture and really get it in there good. And obviously this is way too much rice for this little pumpkin, but that's why we put it in a casserole dish. And what you'll do is just surround the pumpkin with more rice. I don't want to pack it in there too tight though, because just before you serve it, you're going to want to scrape the inside loose of the pumpkin so you get some of that, you know, cooked pumpkin right in there with your rice, and it tastes so good that way. And I know the last time I made this for Thanksgiving, I felt like people were scared to get in there and scrape the pumpkin, like they didn't want to mess up the presentation. And so this year I'm just going to scrape it in advance to get some of that pumpkin in there inside this part. And then if they don't want cooked pumpkin in with their rice, they can just eat the surrounding part. And the rice that I have left here that won't fit into the serving dish, I will just freeze that in individual servings and keep that in the freezer. It'll keep for a really long time in the freezer. So we're going to put this back in the oven. I'm not going to put the, find the right spot for it right there. I'm not going to put that lid on very tight. I want that to be real loose. Oh, and before I put that back in, I'm going to put a little bit of vegetable stock just to give it a little extra moistness. Pour that right over the top and then right over the rest of your rice dish. And then you want to not put that on too tight because you want that steam to be able to escape. And in it goes, probably for about another half hour. You guys, it turned out so good. Look at my pumpkin. Isn't it pretty? I'm pretty proud of it. It came out very tender. The rice is just full of flavor with all of those vegetables baked right into it. And it's something that I will be proud to take to Thanksgiving dinner. So give it a try.